She refuses to rely solely on law enforcement. That sentence, reported today by Reality T and sourced to people close to the family, is the most significant statement about the state of this investigation from inside the Guthrie family that has been publicly disclosed since February. Savannah Guthrie, the NBC Today show anchor whose mother Nancy was abducted from her Tucson home 116 days ago, has assembled a team of private detectives, former federal agents, and security specialists to follow leads connected to her mother's disappearance. She is paying them, out of her own resources, while simultaneously going to work every morning at NBC, hosting the Today Show, wearing yellow, keeping the national profile of this case alive through her continued public presence. She refuses to rely solely on law enforcement. That phrase does not mean Savannah has lost faith in the FBI. The federal investigation, the DNA at Quantico, the blockchain analysis, the genealogy process at Astria, the 50,000 tips, continues. The FBI is still the primary investigative authority on this case. Savannah is not replacing them. She is supplementing them, with her own money, with her own team, with former federal agents who know how investigations work and who are pursuing leads that may or may not be on the official investigative radar, with private detectives who answer to her rather than to the Pima County Sheriff's Department. The significance of this development cannot be understated. When the daughter of a missing person, the most publicly visible member of the family, the person who has been going to work at a national broadcast desk every morning for 116 days, decides to hire her own investigators, she is making a specific judgment about the official investigation. Not that it has failed, that it is not enough, that the resources it is applying and the pace at which it is moving are insufficient for a daughter who is waking up every night in the middle of the night imagining her mother's terror. This is Forensic Disconnect, Day 116, and today we are covering the full picture of where this investigation stands. The private investigators, the former detective who believes the suspect's name is already in the tip file, the incoming DNA results that Nanos says may soon be public, and what it means that 116 days in, the family has decided to stop waiting. Before we go further, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Day 116. Subscribe. Let's start with what hiring private investigators actually means operationally. Because the decision to bring in a private team alongside the official investigation is not a desperate last resort. It is a specific strategic decision with a specific investigative logic. Private investigators operating on behalf of a family in a high-profile missing persons case can do things that official investigators cannot or do not. They can pursue leads that fell outside the prioritization criteria of the official investigation. They can conduct interviews with people who are reluctant to speak to law enforcement but willing to speak to a private investigator working on behalf of the family. They can operate with more flexibility in terms of time and resources, pursuing threads that the official investigation's caseload and prioritization structure might not allow it to follow as aggressively. Former federal agents, the specific type of personnel that Rob Shooter's reporting says Savannah has included in her team, bring the institutional knowledge of how FBI investigations work. They know how evidence is processed. They know how tip lines are evaluated. They know how DNA analysis is sequenced. They know what the investigation is doing and, crucially, what the gaps might be. What leads the official investigation may not have resources to pursue as quickly or as thoroughly as a private team working exclusively on this case. The private team does not have access to the official investigative record. They cannot compel testimony. They cannot execute search warrants. Their findings do not automatically become part of the prosecution's case. But they can find things. They can identify witnesses. They can develop leads that, when provided to the official investigators, become actionable intelligence that the FBI and PCSD can pursue through their own channels. This is not a theoretical construct. Private investigators have contributed to the resolution of major cases before. The combination of a family's personal network, the specific knowledge that comes from being close to the victim's world, and the operational flexibility of a private team can produce results that bureaucratic investigative structures miss. Savannah is not giving up. She is escalating. Now let's go to the former Pima County detective. Because the statement that Robbie Mayer made to Men's Journal this week is, if correct, the most operationally significant assessment of where the investigation currently stands that has been made by anyone with specific first-hand knowledge of how this kind of case gets solved. Mayer is not just any former detective. He worked for the Pima County Sheriff's Department, the same department that has been running this investigation. He knows how the department works. He knows how the tip lines are processed. He knows what 50,000 tips looks like from the inside of an investigative process and what it takes to work through them. He said, "I believe the suspect's name are in those 50,000. Not might be. Not possibly. I believe." From someone who has worked cases in this jurisdiction, who understands the operational reality of what 50,000 tips contains, who has the specific investigative experience to make a calibrated judgment about the probability that a tip line this large contains the information needed to identify the suspect. He was referencing his own prior experience breaking a major case in the same area. He knows what it looks like when the name is in the file, and the investigators just haven't connected it to the profile yet. When the tip that closes the gap exists in the record, but hasn't yet been elevated to the level of attention it deserves. The name is in those 50,000. If Mayer is right, and his professional credibility, his specific institutional knowledge of this jurisdiction, and his calibrated confidence are all reasons to take this seriously, then the resolution of this case is not waiting for a laboratory result or a blockchain breakthrough. It is waiting for the specific connection between a tip that already exists in the investigative record and the profile that the forensic evidence and behavioral analysis have been building for 116 days. The tip that names the executor, the 27-year-old local man who quit his job and left his girlfriend on February 1st. The prowler burglar with the minor criminal record and the hothead ego. Someone who knows this person called the tip line. Their call is in the file. And the investigators who are working through 50,000 tips, the FBI analysts, the PCSD detectives, are somewhere in the process of connecting that call to the profile. The name is in those 50,000. Now let's go to the DNA update, because Nanos said something this week that represents the most specific timeline commitment about the forensic evidence that he has offered in months. He said that more information about the remaining DNA analysis could soon become public. Soon. Not eventually. Not when the investigation is complete. Soon. That word, from the sheriff who has been careful with every public statement about the forensic evidence for 116 days, represents a specific change in how he is characterizing the timeline of the analysis. The unknown DNA at Quantico, confirmed by Nanos last week, being analyzed by the FBI's most advanced forensic laboratory, is moving toward an identification. The specific word soon means that the analysis is at a stage where the results are close enough to public disclosure that Nanos is willing to use that word in a public statement, not weeks or months away. Soon. What does soon mean operationally? It could mean the genealogy process has produced a partial match in the public databases and the family tree is being built. It could mean the deconvolution of the mixed sample at Quantico has produced a clean individual profile that is ready for database comparison. It could mean multiple parallel tracks have produced results that are converging on the same unknown contributor. It could mean the specific combination of Estria's hair analysis and Quantico's mixture work has produced a genetic signature of sufficient resolution to begin the genealogy process. Whatever the specific technical status is, Nanos' use of the word soon is the most optimistic public statement about the forensic timeline that he has made since February, and it arrives on the same day that Savannah's private investigator team enters the public record. The timing is not necessarily coincidental. Families who hire private investigators do so in part because they have specific information about the state of the official investigation. Information that comes through family liaisons with the FBI, through direct communications with investigators, through whatever channel has preserved Savannah's connection to the process. If Savannah's team is being deployed on specific leads connected to the DNA timeline, if the private investigators are pursuing the human intelligence side of what the forensic evidence is pointing toward, the two developments together describe a coordinated escalation. The DNA is pointing toward a name. The private investigators are following the human intelligence leads that connect to that name, and the official investigation is closing in from the forensic side, while the private team works the social and behavioral side. That is the convergence picture of day 116. Now let's go to Charles Brewer, because the retired law enforcement officer with over 20 years of experience who spoke to the Sunday Guardian Live this week confirmed something that every credentialed expert who has analyzed this case has been saying from different angles since February. He said, "Financial gain does not appear to be the primary driver. The money was never the goal. The Bitcoin wallet is empty. The ransom notes went to television stations rather than to the family. The FBI's negotiating signal on February 10th was met with silence. The deadlines passed without consequence. Everything about the ransom communication infrastructure was designed to generate publicity rather than to complete a transaction." Brewer's assessment, from a professional position as a retired officer who has analyzed the specific dynamics of kidnapping cases, is that the person who did this had a different goal. And the specific goal that the behavioral analysis, the wrench attack theory, the bad faith assessment from Steve Moore, and the motive that Nanos has protected for 116 days all point toward is the specific, sustained, publicly visible suffering of Savannah Guthrie. The person who designed this operation has been watching that suffering be produced for 116 days, has been watching Savannah go back to work every morning, has been watching the interviews and the statements and the yellow dress and the "today we go back to work even when we don't feel like it," has been watching a daughter apologize to a mother she cannot reach. And now that daughter has hired private investigators, has assembled a team of former federal agents and security specialists, has refused to rely solely on law enforcement, has escalated to the level of personal, direct, resourced investigation, doing whatever it takes to find her mother. The person who designed this to be about suffering knows that Savannah's private investigation team is the direct consequence of what they designed. They wanted Savannah to be unable to stop. They created a situation in which a daughter who goes to work every morning and wakes up every night, imagining her mother's terror, would eventually reach the point of refusing to wait, would escalate, would put her own resources, her own team, her own former federal agents onto the problem. She has. And the name is in those 50,000 tips. And the DNA result is coming soon. The person who designed this has been calculating their safety for 116 days. Their calculation did not fully account for a daughter who refuses to rely solely on law enforcement. Now let's talk about what the private investigator development means for the specific accountability story that has been running alongside the forensic story in this case. Because the decision to hire private investigators is not made in a vacuum. It is made in the context of a specific evaluation of the official investigation, of what it has produced and what it has not produced. 116 days, no named suspect, no arrest, no confirmed second crime scene. The DNA result is coming soon but has not arrived. The FBI was kept out for 4 days. The first week was a shock show. The county assessor was scolded for helping the FBI. The board decided not to act. The recall deadline is July 10th. The perjury referral is at the Department of Justice. Savannah is watching all of this from inside it. She is getting the family liaison updates from the FBI. She is texting the sheriff occasionally. She is seeing the private communications that do not reach the public record. The specific assessments of where the investigation is and is not progressing. The specific gaps that the official investigation has not been able to close. The specific leads that exist but have not been fully pursued. And after 116 days of that, she assembled a team. The private investigators are the operational expression of a daughter's specific judgment that 116 days of official investigation has not been enough. That the resources and the pace and the specific investigative choices of the official process are not producing results at the rate that the evidence should allow. That doing whatever it takes is not a metaphor. It is a strategy. John Ramsey warned this family 2 weeks ago. Don't assume the police are doing everything they can do. Don't assume they know what they're doing. Really scrutinize what they're doing. Ask questions. Savannah heard that warning, or came to the same conclusion independently. And her response is not criticism from the outside, it is action from the inside. Private investigators, former federal agents, security specialists, following leads that the official investigation may not be pursuing fast enough. The investigation is 116 days old. The name is in those 50,000 tips. The DNA result is coming soon. The private team is working the human intelligence. The official investigation is working the forensic evidence, and somewhere in the specific intersection of all of those parallel tracks, the answer exists. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old, 5 feet tall, silver hair and blue eyes. She was taken from her home 116 days ago. Her flower pots are still on the back patio. The house has poles and chains across both driveways. The memorial is still there. Her daughter hired private investigators. She refuses to rely solely on law enforcement. The name is in those 50,000 tips. The DNA result is coming soon. And a daughter who wakes up every night imagining her mother's terror has decided that soon is not good enough. Let me go deeper into what private investigators actually do in high-profile missing persons cases. Because the public perception of private investigators is shaped by television and film. The lone operator with a camera and a telephoto lens, or the hard-boiled detective of noir fiction. The reality of what a high-quality private investigation team does in a case like this one is more specific and more operationally significant than those cultural images suggest. A private investigation team operating on behalf of a family in a major missing persons case brings several specific capabilities that supplement rather than duplicate official law enforcement. The first is independent witness development. In any investigation, there are potential witnesses who are reluctant to speak to law enforcement. People who have information but who, for reasons of personal history, professional vulnerability, or simple distrust of authority, will not voluntarily contact the police or the FBI. A private investigator working on behalf of the family does not carry the institutional authority of law enforcement, and some witnesses find that less threatening. They will speak to a private investigator who can assure them their information will be used to help the family rather than to expose them to official scrutiny. The second capability is lead follow-up depth. Official investigations prioritize. With 50,000 tips, the FBI and PCSD are working through an enormous volume of information using criteria that reflect the overall investigative picture. Some tips that would rank low in the official prioritization, because they don't immediately match the known evidence profile, because the specific knowledge they contain is not yet connected to the broader investigation, might rank higher for a private team that has specific intelligence from inside the family about what the investigators have found but not yet publicly disclosed. The third capability is the social network approach. Savannah Guthrie is one of the most connected media figures in the country. Her private team can leverage connections that official investigators cannot access through official channels. Connections in the media world, in the NBC family, in the broader professional network of a national news anchor who has been at the center of this story for 116 days. People who would not call the FBI tip line might reach out through a channel connected to Savannah's private team. The fourth, and perhaps most significant capability, is the specific expertise of former federal agents. The people Shooter's report says Savannah has included in her team are not generic private investigators. They are people who know how FBI investigations work from the inside, who know how DNA evidence is processed and what the timeline of a genealogy analysis looks like, who know what the blockchain forensics process produces and at what stage of the analysis the results become actionable, who know how the official investigation is structured and what the specific gaps in that structure might be. Former federal agents working alongside an active investigation, with the consent and knowledge of the official investigators, can serve as an informed translation layer between what the FBI is actually doing and what the family needs to understand about the state of the case. They can ask the right questions of the official investigators. They can identify when the official timeline is realistic and when it is not. They can push in ways that a grieving family cannot effectively push for the specific resources and attention that the case requires. Savannah's team is not a replacement for the FBI. It is a supplement, a parallel track, a way of ensuring that the investigation has every possible resource working on every possible angle simultaneously. Now let me go back to Mayer's statement, because the specific claim that the suspect's name is in those 50,000 tips deserves more analytical attention than a headline summary provides. Robbie Mayer is a former detective for the Pima County Sheriff's Department. He worked cases in the specific jurisdiction where this investigation is happening. He has specific first-hand knowledge of how tip lines work in Pima County, how the PCSD processes leads, and what the investigative landscape looks like from inside the department. His reference to his own prior experience, breaking a major case in the same area, is the specific credential he is drawing on when he says, "I believe the name is in those 50,000. He is not making a general probability argument. He is saying, I have worked cases here. I know what 50,000 tips looks like from inside a Pima County investigation, and based on what I know about how cases like this are solved, I believe the name is there." The specific implication of his statement is important. If the suspect's name is in those 50,000 tips, if someone has already called and provided information that, properly processed and connected, leads to the executor's identity, then the resolution of this case does not require a breakthrough. It requires the completion of a process that is already underway. The tip that breaks the case is not a future event waiting to happen. It is a past event waiting to be recognized. This is what makes Savannah's private investigator team so operationally relevant to Mayer's assessment. If the name is in those 50,000 tips and the resolution is waiting for the right connection to be made, a team of former federal agents who know how to work tip intelligence, who know how to look at a volume of information and identify the specific lead that has been overlooked, who know what the behavioral profile of the executor looks like, and can apply that profile to the tip file systematically, is exactly the supplement the official investigation needs. The FBI has been working through 50,000 tips for 116 days with the full resources of the Bureau. They may have already identified the relevant lead and are working toward confirming it, or they may be close but not there yet. Or there may be a specific connection that Savannah's private team, with its supplementary knowledge of the family's world and its specific network of contacts, can make that the official investigation has not yet made. Mayer's confidence is the most specific positive assessment of the case's current status that has been offered by anyone with direct institutional knowledge of this jurisdiction, and it arrives on the same day as Savannah's private investigator development. The name is in those 50,000 tips, and a team of former federal agents is now working alongside the official investigation to find it. Now let's talk about the specific emotional reality of what Savannah Guthrie has been living for 116 days, because the private investigator development is not just an operational decision, it is a human decision, and understanding the human context helps explain why it was made now, on day 116, rather than earlier or later. She said it in March, "I wake up every night in the middle of the night. Every night. And in the darkness I imagine her terror and it is unthinkable, but those thoughts demand to be thought." She has been living inside that sentence for 116 days. Every night. The thoughts that demand to be thought. The terror she imagines on her mother's behalf. The specific injury of not knowing which side of the line you are on, whether grief can begin or whether hope must continue. She has been going to work. She has been wearing yellow. She has been hosting the Today Show and interviewing guests and reading headlines and doing the job that a professional does because the alternative, stopping, withdrawing, ceasing to function publicly, would mean that whoever designed this has succeeded in removing Savannah Guthrie from the national stage. She has not let that happen. Every morning, yellow. But 116 days of that, 116 days of waking up in the middle of the night and going back to work and watching the investigation produce no named suspect and no arrest, and the board deciding not to act, and the sheriff not talking to the family and Enton's sources saying not much closer. 116 days of that produces a decision. A specific decision by a specific person who has the resources, the connections, and the professional experience to know what a private investigation team can do that the official investigation cannot or will not do fast enough. She assembled the team. She refuses to rely solely on law enforcement. That decision is not evidence that the official investigation has failed. It is evidence that a daughter who was told by the father of John Benet Ramsey to scrutinize the police rather than assume they know what they're doing has taken that advice seriously. That a daughter who watched the first week of the investigation be called a show by the deputies union president has internalized what that means for the quality of the investigative foundation. That a daughter who knows the FBI was kept out for 4 days and the hair went to the wrong lab and the county assessor was scolded for helping has decided that waiting is no longer a sufficient strategy. She is doing whatever it takes. Now let's hold the complete Day 116 picture together, because the combination of developments today describes a specific convergence that has not existed at any prior point in this case. The private team is working. Former federal agents and security specialists, assembled and funded by Savannah, following leads that the official investigation may not be pursuing fast enough. Operating with the specific knowledge of the family's world and the specific expertise of people who understand how FBI investigations work from the inside, the name is in those 50,000 tips. A former Pima County detective with specific institutional knowledge of this jurisdiction and this investigative process says he believes the suspect's name is already in the record. The connection between that name and the investigative profile is waiting to be made. The DNA result is coming soon. Nanos said it. More information about the remaining DNA analysis could soon become public. The unknown contributor at Quantico is getting closer to having a name. Multiple labs, multiple analytical approaches, all converging. The money was never the goal. Charles Brewer confirmed what every credentialed expert has been saying since February. Financial gain does not appear to be the primary driver. The ransom was the cover story. The suffering was the goal. And the specific person who designed the suffering has been watching it be produced for 116 days. And now the daughter who has been producing that suffering for 116 days by refusing to stop, by going back every morning in yellow, by keeping the story national, by doing the interview and issuing the statement and maintaining the public profile that makes her mother's case impossible to ignore, has escalated, has hired her own team, has refused to rely solely on law enforcement. The person who designed this to be about suffering did not fully calculate that, did not fully account for what a daughter who refuses to be stopped looks like at Day 116, did not fully factor in that the suffering they designed would eventually produce not passivity, but escalation. She is looking for you, with her own team, with her own resources, with former federal agents who know how you operate. The name is in those 50,000 tips. The DNA result is coming soon, and the private team is working. Day 116. She refuses to rely solely on law enforcement. Let me go deeper into the specific significance of the former detective's claim that the name is in those 50,000 tips. Because understanding why this claim is credible requires understanding how tip line investigations actually work, and why the specific combination of 50,000 tips and a detailed behavioral profile creates conditions where Mayer's confidence is forensically grounded. Tip lines in major investigations receive information of wildly varying quality. Some callers have direct, specific knowledge. They witnessed something. They know someone whose behavior changed. They have information that is directly connected to the crime. Other callers are offering speculation, or reporting dreams, or calling from places that have no geographic connection to the case. The vast majority of 50,000 tips will be in the second category. The investigative challenge is not finding the right tip. It is identifying the right tip within a volume of information that is designed to obscure it. The person with the direct, specific knowledge, the one who watched a 27-year-old local man quit his job and leave his girlfriend on February 1st, may not know that their observation is significant. They may have called and described what they saw in terms that seemed routine. A coworker who quit suddenly, a neighbor who moved out, a friend who stopped returning calls. None of those observations, viewed in isolation, trigger the specific recognition that they are describing the executor of the most significant kidnapping case in modern American history. But viewed against the behavioral profile, 27 to 28 years old, local prowler burglar history, quit job and left girlfriend on the day the story broke, left town, that routine observation transforms. The coworker who quit suddenly becomes the executor. The neighbor who moved out becomes the 27-year-old local man. The friend who stopped returning calls becomes the person who fled to Mexico or was eliminated by the mastermind. The connection between the tip and the profile is the investigative work that the FBI has been doing for 116 days. Processing 50,000 tips against the behavioral profile that Casey Jordan, Gary Bricado, and Ann Burgess built over months of public and private analysis. Looking for the specific observation that, when viewed through the lens of that profile, stops being routine and starts being the lead that breaks the case. Mayer believes that connection has been made, or is very close to being made. that the name is already in the file, that the investigator who is working through the tip that contains the name is somewhere in the process of recognizing what they have. If Mayer is right, the resolution of this case is not waiting for a breakthrough. It is waiting for the conclusion of a process that is already running. The forensic evidence from Quantico is moving toward confirmation. The tip with the name is in the file. The private team is following the human intelligence leads. The convergence is happening, and it can change in a second. Now let me go to what the specific combination of Savannah's private team and the official investigation's current state means for the person at the center of this crime. Because the mastermind who designed this operation has been calculating their safety for 116 days, and today's developments change that calculation. The mastermind knows that Savannah hired private investigators. That information is now public. They are reading about it. They have been watching every development in this case for 116 days, and they are reading about this one too. What does that calculation look like from inside someone who designed a wrench attack, who believes their technical sophistication has insulated them from the physical evidence, who has been watching the suffering they engineered for 116 days? They know the FBI is following the blockchain. They know the DNA is at Quantico. They know the genealogy process is running. They have been calculating the probability that any one of these threads will reach them. And now they know that a team of former federal agents, people who know how FBI investigations work from the inside, who know what the blockchain trail looks like and where it leads, who know how the genealogy process produces identifications, is working on behalf of Savannah Guthrie, with her resources, with her network, with access to the specific intelligence that the family's position inside the investigation provides. Former federal agents working alongside an active case know how to share information with the official investigators in ways that accelerate the official process. They know how to take a lead developed through private investigation and hand it to the FBI in a form that the FBI can act on. They know the specific protocols that bridge private investigation and official law enforcement. The mastermind has been calculating their safety against the FBI. They may not have fully calculated their safety against former FBI agents working for Savannah Guthrie. The calculation is getting harder to sustain. Now let me address something that the Reality T article raised today that deserves specific attention. They reported that more than 100 days have passed since Nancy's disappearance, and now Savannah is reportedly paying private investigators to keep Nancy's search active. The phrase "keep Nancy's search active" is important. Savannah's private team is not only working the who, they are also working the where. The second crime scene that Cece Moore said must exist, wherever Nancy was taken after her home, has not been officially identified. The desert around Tucson is vast. The Madres Buscadoras have been searching south of the border. The YouTube content creators have been walking through the terrain. The Catalyst Center has been using ground-penetrating technology. And now a privately funded team with former federal agents is adding its own search capability. Former agents who know the geography of criminal disposal, who know the specific logic of how someone who committed this crime would have moved through the terrain between Tucson and the border, who know the patterns that connect a crime like this to the specific geography of the Sonoran Desert. Keeping Nancy's search active means finding Nancy, not just identifying who took her, finding her, bringing her home, giving the family the resolution, whatever form that resolution takes, that 116 days of aching and wondering has been denied to them. The private team is working both tracks, the human intelligence and the physical search, the Woichu and the where. Day 116. The investigation is converging from multiple directions simultaneously. The official investigation is building through the forensic evidence, the DNA at Quantico, the blockchain, the genealogy. The former detective believes the name is already in the 50,000 tips. The private team is working the human intelligence and the physical search. The DNA result is coming soon. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old, 5 feet tall, silver hair and blue eyes. She has been missing for 116 days. She raised 3 children alone. She showed her daughter, by everything she ever did, what it looks like to keep going when the world falls apart. Her daughter is keeping going. With her own money, with her own team, with former federal agents who know how investigations work from the inside, refusing to rely solely on law enforcement, refusing to stop. The name is in those 50,000 tips. The DNA result is coming soon. The private team is working. And a daughter who wakes up every night imagining her mother's terror has decided that 116 days is long enough to wait. If you have any information about Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, contact the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI, 1-800-225-5324. Submit tips at tips.fbi.gov. Call the Pima County Sheriff's Department at 520-351-4900. The combined reward is over $1 million. Completely anonymous. Hit the like button. Subscribe to Forensic Disconnect. Drop a comment. Do you believe the suspect's name is already in those 50,000 tips? And does Savannah hiring private investigators change how you see this case? We read every single comment. Day 116. She refuses to rely solely on law enforcement. We will be back tomorrow.